Hey guys, Zomfox here, and like usual for the past couple days, we're talking about another player who just got signed. It's another Pittsburgh Mauler, this time it is Carlo Kemp, a former defensive end of the Maulers, is now with the Chargers. His stats, to put it simply, are pretty solid. Like, really, they're really solid. He's another guy that was kind of, no one talked about him because he was from the Maulers. He was literally the 10th overall pick, which naturally is because of the way the rounds worked, but he was the second pick of the defensive end category, so a lot of people had him is a higher player. He didn't get any interceptions, but he did force 2 fumbles and recover 2. He did have a pass defense as a defensive end. But the important thing is he was 5th in sacks at 5, though he's tied, and he was 19th in tackles at 51, despite being an end. That's pretty good. Overall, it's really solid numbers. So, as for the team he's on, yeah, the Chargers have a lot of edge talent, whether or not you look at him as a defensive end, which is what his position is, so that's what we're judging him on. They're technically running a 3-4, but I think everyone knows that this team's probably going to be rushing like 4 to 5 guys every time. It's just they have such talent and edge rushing and stuff like that. As their actual edge rushers, from like outside linebackers includes like, Khalil Mack, like some other guys they just signed, but Joey Bosa. But as for defensive ends, Jerry Tillery and Sebastian Joseph Day are the starters. Christian Covington and Braden Ferheco are second string. Joe Gaziano and Morgan Fox are third string, and then Carlo Kemp is the fourth string. As for the guys that are on the lower end, as to put it simply, unlike pretty much every other group, there's really no one in this group who I would say is like a, bad NFL player, just okay. Like, Morgan Fox is probably the 4th best player on here, and he's a solid player. I mean, he was really solid for Carolina. He wasn't spectacular, but he was solid, and I remember, like, him being a decent player. And these other guys are undrafted free agents that have played a little bit and haven't, been terrible. Fajalco has, he started 1 game last year. He had 5 total tackles, solo, and then 13 total combined. Gaziano, he started 1 game as well. He had a pass defense and 13 total tackles with the TFL as well. So, I mean, for undrafted guys, they're not terrible. I mean, they've played, so I think they're solid. I do think that, Kemp can definitely overtake him. Morgan Fox, however, he was with the Rams for a while. He didn't really become a real starter, but he always played and got some sort of tackles and stuff. But he started 9 games for the Panthers. He did only have 1.5 sacks, which is a big fall off from having 6, despite only being a 2-time starter and mainly being a rotation guy. But he still did have 7 QB hits. He had 2 TFLs. That's pretty solid. And he's had a fumble recovery almost every year of his career, as long as a forced fumble. That's solid. And there are 3, better guys, as none of them are really spectacular, though they're all solid. As the defensive ends for this team aren't, the ceiling for a lot of them isn't super high, but the floor is, like, pretty high up for a floor. Christian Covington has been in the league for a while. He was drafted in 2015 as a 6th-round pick. Despite being a 6th-round pick, he's managed to stay in the league a while, and he even was a full-time starter back in 2020 with Cincinnati, starting 14 games. He had 39 combined tackles, with 14 of them being solo, with 0 sacks, however. But then the year after, in 2021, he only started 3 games, came as a rotationer kind of guy, and he had a forced fumble, he had 1 sack, he had, 13 more tackles, which is impressive because 16 more solo tackles. So he was really, a solid rotational guy last year. Joseph Day, as for him, he was with the Rams as well, as he has been, a full-time starter for a couple years with them, despite being a 6th-round pick as well, after not playing his first year. But he's had a consistent amount of sacks, and even in 2021, when he only played 7 games, he had 3 sacks, 38 tackles, and then 23 of them being solo with 3 TFLs. And he's been a very solid guy. He hasn't been, spectacular, and a lot of that is, thanks to, the Rams have, a guy called Aaron Donald, so getting sacks as, non-Aaron Donald people, and especially, Leonard Floyd also being there, yeah, you kind of get open to get some pressure and stuff. But the fact is, for a guy that was a 6th-round pick to, be a 3-year full-time starter is pretty impressive. Speaking about actual first-round pick, Jerry Tillery of the Chargers a couple years ago, he has become more of a starter since his first year. In the last 2 years, he's had 30 and 51 tackles respectively, 3 sacks and 4.5 respectively, 3 and 6 TFLs respectively, with 14 QB hits in both years. So he's been solid. So as for Kemp, I think Kemp can. It's hard. I really don't know how far Kemp could go. I think that his best bet is just trying to genuinely make the roster. As I said, this defensive end group, it might not be the most insane group, but they're all pretty solid. I think he could get ahead of Gaziano. I think Fox will probably move up. I think he could be a third string or second string guy. Or he might even stay there as a fourth string and then might just do a rotation. It's another thing we gotta just wait. But this has been Zom Fox. If you enjoy this content, want to be notified as soon as I upload any video. As it pretty much at this point, I am pretty much just covering every single player that gets signed, barring that there's a huge influx. But yeah, this has been Zom Fox. Subscribe and hit the bell. As always, have a great night.